Hi guys, and welcome back to a new hands-on video by Mirror Lessons, and today I want to talk to you about the new Sony RX10 Mark II and RX100 Mark IV. We had the chance to see those cameras at the recent European press event, where we also saw the Sony A7R Mark II. You can check out actually our hands-on video about the A7R Mark II that we published yesterday. Today I want to talk to you about the new RX cameras, because actually the A7R Mark II kind of put those two cameras in the shadows. I mean, everyone's talking about the A7R Mark II because of its great full frame sensor, because of the new autofocus system, because of the 5-axis stabilization, the 4K internal recording, and all these great features. But actually, the RX10 Mark II and the RX100 IV also have very interesting technology. And so I think they deserve the same attention as the A7R Mark II. So let's see what exactly we're talking about. So the two cameras have a 1-inch sensor. Actually, the sensor has the same 20 megapixel resolution and the same sensitivity as the previous models. However, there is a very important new feature on this sensor. It actually has a random access memory stacked behind. It's the world's first stacked CMOS sensor with DRAM. Sony calls it DRAM. So basically it's like the RAM on your computer, on your laptop or desktop computers. And that RAM memory allows the camera to be 5 times faster when it comes to processing data and images. Now, in my opinion, that's a very interesting technology, basically because these new cameras have some amazing capabilities. We're talking 16 frames per second of continuous shooting. We are talking 4K internal recording with full pixel readout. We are talking very fast shutter speed with the electronic shutter. And we are talking about standing slow motion capabilities, actually up to 1000 frames per second. So these are very amazing specs, and these are specs that usually you can find on very high-end DSLRs, or when it comes to slow motion, you can actually find it on very expensive cinema cameras. So of course it's not perfect, and I'm going to show you exactly how it works, but on paper these are amazing specs, exactly as the A7R Mark II has amazing specs on a different territory. So let's talk about the continuous shooting speed. The RX100 Mark IV and the RX10 Mark II can shoot at 16 frames per second. Actually, it is 16 frames per second for the RX100 and 14 frames per second for the RX10. And they can shoot without any buffer limit, without any blackout. It works really well as long as you are in JPEG fine mode and as long as you are in AF single with speed priority instead of focus priority. So actually in continuous autofocus, it's not 16 or 14 frames per second anymore. It's like 5.5 frames per second. Let's talk about the electronic shutter. Sony implemented an interesting option called anti-distortion shutter, and that's very interesting because basically it reduces the issues with rolling shutter. Now, rolling shutter has been a problem that many large sensor cameras had, especially camcorders and camera designed for video. So rolling shutter is basically when the vertical lines in your frame becomes diagonal. They are distorted because the camera is not able to read fast enough all the pixels on the sensor. This new anti-distortion shutter is very effective on stills. I was able to try it again during the event, and for stills it works well. I did some very fast panning with the camera, and the line mostly stayed always very vertical. For video it is less effective, and Sony actually confirmed that to me. So right now the anti-distortion shutter is more for stills when you use the electronic shutter, but it still reduces some rolling shutter for video as well. So that's another thing that I really find interesting with these two new cameras, because it is the first time that I saw a new feature that is specifically designed for rolling shutter issues. Let's talk about video, because one of the major improvements on these two cameras has to do with video. So they're both recording 4K video internally, and the RX100 Mark IV can record 5 minutes, the RX10 Mark II can record 29 minutes. I'm not sure exactly why the RX100 Mark IV is limited, but I can only think it has to do with overheating. Another interesting feature is that both cameras can record 4K internally with full pixel readout, so without pixel binning. And that's something that the S7R Mark II can do only crop mode. The S7S can do it on the full frame sensor on the entire surface. The RX10 Mark II also has S-Log2 and picture profile options, so like the S7S. So let's talk now about slow motion capabilities. So on paper, again, it looks impressive. 1000 frames per second, it's quite amazing. However, there is a catch, and the catch is the higher the frame rate is, the lower the resolution of your footage is. So basically, if you shoot 1000 frames per second, you get a resolution that it's roughly standard definition. Forget 4K possibilities, of course. With slow motion, the highest resolution you can get, it's very close to full HD. It's slightly smaller than that, and that's with 250 frames per second, which is already really good. If you increase the frame rate to 500 or 1000, the resolution is going to decrease. But there is another thing also to consider: the aspect ratio will change. So at 250 frames per second, you can get almost full HD at the standard 16:9 aspect ratio. If you increase the frame rate, you will get something closer to 8:3 aspect ratio. So it is a more panoramic format. There are two modes you can select. One is called time priority, and the other one is called quality priority. Quality priority, you will have basically 2 seconds to record the slow motion. On time priority, it is 4 seconds. And the way it works is actually the camera will load on the virtual memory those 2 seconds of slow motion footage, and then it will record physically the file on your SD card. You cannot do real-time slow motion video. You have to record, then wait that the camera writes it on the memory card, and then you can record again. That is very similar to a slow motion feature Sony already implemented a few years ago on some of his professional and semi-professional camcorders for video. So it is nice to see it now on such small camera as the RX100. What about the camera design? Well, they actually essentially the same. The RX100 Mark IV has a few improvements. One of these improvements is the resolution of the pop-up built-in viewfinder has been doubled. It is 2359,000 dots. It has the same size magnification by the doubled resolution, which is a nice upgrade. And that's about it for the RX100 Mark IV. For the RX10 Mark II, there are a few more improvements. And first of all, the body is made of magnesium alloy. It's dust and moisture resistant. The EVF also has the same resolution as the RX100 Mark IV, so it is an improvement over the first RX10. Sony also claims that the autofocus is slightly faster. I briefly tried the camera during the hands-on event, and I couldn't notice a drastic improvement over the first RX10, but overall the autofocus is fast on both cameras. They both have a contrast detection AF system. The lenses on both cameras are exactly the same as with the precedent models. So the RX10 Mark II has a 24 to 200mm f2.8 constant aperture zoom lens, and the RX100 Mark IV has a f1.8 to 2.8 24 to 70mm lens. They both designed by Zeiss. So that's it about this hands-on video about the new RX10 Mark II and RX100 Mark IV. As always, don't hesitate to leave a comment on this very YouTube video or on our website mirrorlessons.com, where you can find the hands-on review about these new cameras. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. Please share the video if you liked it. Thank you for watching. See you next time.